So without further ado, I'm going to get Michael Shaw up here to introduce you to Freedom 21 Santa Cruz. And Michael certainly is one of the champions of trying to get people to understand what sustainable development is about, what Agenda 21 is about, and certainly the background to this movement, which is directing so much of what's going on in America today. How we are going to have to conserve. We're going to have to cut back on energy use. Certainly we see the rising oil prices. We see the rising price of electricity. We see the rising price of natural gas. And all of these are going to impact on your life. But the question is, why are these things happening? Well, let's let you listen to what Michael Shaw has as we begin talking about this whole concept, sustainable development, Agenda 21.
The purpose of Freedom 21 Santa Cruz is to focus attention on the protection of parenthood, private property, and the focus, increasing focus, for the exercise of a legitimate and moral government. We pay our attention to and we bring information on what we call the transformation of America, the global to local agenda called Agenda 21, or Sustainable Development. The purpose of Agenda 21, or Sustainable Development, is to effect a central control that eliminates individuality and subjects all human beings to ordered control. In your packet today is our latest pamphlet called Transforming America, Sustainable Development, the Destruction of Your Rights, and the Creation of Crisis, Shortage, and a Police State. One way we advance awareness is through our weekly radio show on Radio Liberty. And thank you, Dr. Stan Monteith, for giving those of us who are trying to bring the Santa Cruz dynamic to people living not only here, but people across the country, because what is happening in Santa Cruz is happening everywhere. There is a program in every county across the country that parallels Santa Cruz's formal local Agenda 21. Our program for the 21st century, as determined by those in power and control, is set out on our table, the local Santa Cruz Agenda 21 program. Your county may not call it the same, but it is the same. So who are we at Santa Cruz, Freedom 21 Santa Cruz, and what have we been doing? Well, we're people. People who appreciate other people. We appreciate human life. We're dedicated to human liberty, and we respect private property. We're people of goodwill, parents, free enterprisers, people who seek improvement in their own lives, and people who know that the freedom for one requires that the freedoms be equal and available to all. Respect for private property and the reasonable use of private property rests at the cornerstone of this. Because without private property, there will be no freedom for anyone. What we do at Freedom 21 Santa Cruz is several things. We have a website, F for Freedom, 21, SC for Santa Cruz, F21SC.net. And at our website, the first effort we made when we began to formulate these ideas in 2001 was to create a resource center to show the documentation that clearly links the global movement to a local dynamic happening throughout the country. So our researchers from Santa Cruz and from around the country just poured in the critical information necessary for you or anyone to make a clear analysis of how the globalist documentation and philosophy has embedded through our federal government and right down to our local communities. So tremendous credit must be given by all of us to these people who have been researching, in some cases for decades, tracking the development of this story to where now it's become an easy one to understand, an easy one to recognize, and will become increasingly easy to expose. At our website, we have an electronic magazine called Advanced Bulletin. Those are articles largely written by people writing for Freedom 21 Santa Cruz. Tremendous investigative tools have been used by these people that assess what's happening here and happening elsewhere, what's happening through the federal government, how it is that sustainable development comes into our communities. We have produced and published audio and video products, some of which is available at our table today. We have an electronic store that's worth visiting, and we have a radio archive for almost all of the shows that we've produced at Radio Liberty for the last year and a half. We have a building system of links, and we issue a report periodically that updates the readers on the events happening in the sustainable development world with ideas on how to counter these things. If you're not receiving our report, you can sign up for it at our table in the corner, and we'll get those things off to you electronically. In essence, we're a spoke on a growing wheel within the freedom movement. We are a cautious and principled example of how the fight against the sustainable takeover must be fought. We don't compromise principle, and that's the key to our continuation. For instance, this summer there's been raging a huge battle in Washington, D.C. over the Endangered Species Act, with some in the property rights movement calling for reform. Now, how do you reform a bill that says plants and bugs are more important than people? There can be no compromise. The Endangered Species Act must slowly and methodically be worked over until it is repealed, until America is back in the hands of the Americans, the parents, the individuals, the associations and companies that feed us all with a product developed in a free enterprise system that has served this country in 10 generations so well. Baby boomers are at risk of handing all that away to the sustainable paradigm of public-private partnerships. Our goal is to be a tool for Americans to initiate individual initiative, bringing local action and having national impact. That is how we'll salvage freedom. The message today that I wanted to deliver is to ask an important question regarding sustainable development. And that is, how is it that we're going to make our friends, neighbors, and associates aware of what's going on? I've got a three-step process that I'll suggest. One is we must understand sustainable development. Two is we must identify its vulnerabilities so that we can take advantage of them. And third, we must gather people of goodwill toward an end to sustainable development and a restoration of individual liberty. You know, the question I ask is this, as an example, and you can look at your own community. If you're not where Santa Cruz is, you will be soon. Is Santa Cruz frozen into a sustainable development ditch? Are we really destined to become a community of compliant drones living in eco villages? Well, if not, we must get out of the ditch, or it will happen. Individual humanity will be squashed. You become compliant, or you would be deemed not sustainable. Compliant to what? Well, compliant to their edict for the New World Order, which at its core is a population control and reduction program. To help you understand what sustainable development is, let me just outline it this way. Their goal is to cause confusion, division, and dependency. They work to compromise the principle at any turn. They are willing to suffer any loss so long as there is a compromise of principle, and that compromise happens in your local schools and in your local planning departments and in your local board of supervisors, at your water districts, in your fire districts, and increasingly even coming to our police departments. It is the compromise we must reject. Victory comes from refusing the compromise of principle that ends up in the advance of tyranny. They also work to blur and raid, because it's a political axiom from way back that if you can blur the boundaries of a culture and raid its treasury, you can gather all the riches of all the people. That's what regional government in California and on the Central Coast and across the country is all about. That's what the attack on the boundaries that come with private property is all about. It is what our trade policy is all about, as we break down our national sovereignty through trade policies that destroy America as a nation. It is about cultural destruction. And it's become quite obvious that the Treasury is being raided. Even left liberals have begun to voice concern about the runaway of the American dollar. The creative destruction to our infrastructure is becoming quite obvious. Here in Santa Cruz, you can't even get a lane on a road that's 20 years past due by their own criteria. It is not accidental that our infrastructure is not improving, while our burden as citizen taxpayers continues to increase. You see, the progression of sustainable development ideology takes us past confusion, division, and dependency and into a world of war, revolution, and terror. We must identify sustainable development's vulnerability. That's easiest when we understand that sustainable development is one coin, always with two sides. Left, right, liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat. The purpose of such dichotomy is to serve the interests of sustainable developers to divide our society. You see, the battle between liberty and tyranny does not go from the left and the right. It goes from up to down. And when we realize that we've been pinned and cornered into camps fighting each other so that the Fabian turtle can come in later and clean up all the victories of war, a war well done that centralizes all human action and controls all human beings, they will have had their day. But when we understand that the leaders of our country today and in our local communities are being rewarded for contributing to that divide, we can learn to stop falling for it. It is then that we can separate ordinary people, ourselves, from the leaders who are leading us down this path. At that point, our job is, and beginning right now, our job is to gather people of goodwill. Our differences aren't with people who have fallen for the sustainable development lingo. Sure, there are some people who know exactly what they're doing. Their motivations are political and philosophical. There are others who see it as great opportunity for joining themselves as partners with the agent of force, with their local government, so they make guaranteed and easy profits at the expense of a truly free market, free enterprise system. The key in gathering people is to make sure that each of us individually hold the principle, that we expose or at least acknowledge the existence of the giant fraud that's being placed upon us, and that we work to protect the potential of the American experience. That we understand and respect private property, and that we respect that each person has a life of their own. Well, we've got some catching up to do because evil always gets out of the gate first. Doesn't mean they get across the finish line. Tyranny is way ahead in the battle for the future. At Freedom 21 Santa Cruz, many people have been continuing, and it moves in and out. People contribute when they can and come back when they can. But the writings, the research, the spreading of information is what's crucial to making victory freedom for ourselves and for our posterity. We work to help by giving information that allows people to understand sustainable development. Now in its second printing, thanks to the coordinated and efforts of Henry Lamb at Ecologic, we're now in our second printing of our first guide, Understanding Sustainable Development, Agenda 21, a guide. And we call this a guide for public officials, but it's really a guide for citizens so that we can begin to know what we should be expecting from our public officials. This is circulating very well across the country, particularly in states that are doing well in fighting for private property and fighting against smart growth and sustainable development. States like Wisconsin and Oregon. I've had state legislators from an expanding number of states acknowledge the helpfulness of this guide. To my knowledge, no California representative has seen it yet. We've got a lot of work to do here in California, here in Santa Cruz, of spreading the word, and it is something that each of us can do, beginning in our own homes. We also work to expand the understanding of sustainable development as well as the vulnerability that it has. And in the freedom movement, this tape, this 6-hour DVD, 5 1-hour presentations, has done an incredible job as it begins to spread throughout the country. Dr. Michael Kaufman, Tom DeWeese, Beverly Eckman, Michael Chapman on education, and myself give as comprehensive an analysis of what's going on and how it's happening and what we can do to stop it. And finally, at Freedom 21 Santa Cruz, we do our radio shows. We've got some of them on the table here. They're in the archives. They're ready for you to listen to. We've got our featured story from this year, The War on Reason, Transforming America, with experts, 8 hours, experts from across the country with particular aspects of what sustainable development is. So we ask you to join the spirit of people working Freedom 21 Santa Cruz. Form your own organizations, spread the word, look to us and to others who are really beginning to tie the rope around sustainable development policy. And now all we need is the further spreading of that information. We'll win the battle as we do that. Thank you.